There's the statistic. So in August of every year, new statistics come out about healthcare, and 90% of people with dementia will be combative at some point during the disease. Now, combative can be physically combative or it can be verbally aggressive. They're all falling under combative. It's usually during ADL time, and ADL stands for Activities of Daily Living. So it's typically during the time of grooming, bathing, dressing, toileting, mealtime, one of those things that we do day in and day out. And if you think about why that might happen, this is something they've been doing for themselves for a very, very long time. And now you're either telling me that I'm doing it wrong, or you're trying to do it for me, and I don't need your stupid help anyway. And it may just come out like that. And we're going to look at why it happens before we go into some things that, because I think as caregivers, if we can understand the why, it helps our empathy a little bit more. Not sympathy, we're not feeling sorry for, it's the empathy, trying to stand in their shoes. So under physical aggression, it may be things like hitting, pushing, kicking, spitting, grabbing, anything that's physical. Verbal aggression, this is where it may just be getting very agitated, starting to repeat words and questions, but doing it with an aggressive tone, demanding constant attention, maybe even standing directly in front of you and not allowing you to look at other things, or shouting. And then we'll look at some other ways that this plays out as well. Now, keep in mind, before I have everybody panic, that does not mean your loved one is going to do this. That's one of those things about dementia. We don't know. They might not. They may do it this afternoon. They may never do it again. They may do it in 6 weeks and then do it again in 6 months. We don't know, but we do know that about 90% of people are at some point or another either going to be physically or verbally aggressive. So what is happening in the brain? And if you've been on many of our programs, you've seen this before, the next couple. We use this a lot so that you can actually see, and this is really good whenever you then are teaching other people about the disease. When you're trying to get other people to understand what's going on with your loved one, here are the different parts of the brain and what they control. And then we're going to look at a real brain in just a minute, and we're going to see the atrophy, and we're going to see the holes that have developed in the brain. And we can't expect that person who has dementia, whose brain is beginning to shrink, to act like somebody who doesn't have anything going on with their brain. So these are just the different areas of the brain and what they control. And then here's the picture that we use. So that brain on the left is the normal brain. That is a 3-pound brain. This is a normal brain of a 70-year-old man. The brain on the right is the brain of a man who died with end-stage Alzheimer's disease. Now, with all of the dementias, though, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to atrophy, so shrink. In frontotemporal, FTD, you may hear that sometimes. That's where the frontal part of the brain actually pulls back even quicker than the rest of it. Normally the atrophy's about at the same pace, but in FTD, the front part pulls back a little quicker. But you see that one on the right weighs 1 pound. We can't expect those two people to act the same. So I'm going to keep referring back to this picture as we go through here. So everything that they do, all of their behavior is some form of communication. And that's where if we change our mindset into what are they trying to tell me? What is their unmet need? And what their unmet need might look like is very different from what one of our unmet needs might look like. So we're going to talk through that. Usually, if you get right down to it, the reason we have a challenging behavior is because they're scared or they're frustrated. It'll come down to one of those two, scared or frustrated. We've already mentioned that the most common trigger is during care time. They're either not understanding what we're asking them to do because we're just expecting them to know how to brush their teeth, or expecting them to know how to take a shower, or expecting them to know how to get in the car. There's a big one. At some point, I've had a lot of people, the day they figured out they didn't know how to get in the car, Well, think about how many steps there are to getting in the car. And sequencing, it's going away. There's too many steps. So when somebody also, as part of dementia, many times somebody will have delusions or hallucinations. And I put the difference in a delusion and a hallucination. A delusion's when you can't tell the difference between something that's real and imagined. A hallucination is a perception of something that isn't there. And so they'll be more aggressive if they're having delusions or hallucinations. They may be bored or they may be lonely. Both of those can also trigger some combativeness. So some other reasons, just not being able to understand what is happening. I'm not understanding what you're asking me to do. Where you or I could say, could you go over that one more time? I didn't get that. Or could you slow down? I'm not understanding what you're saying. That's being reasonable and rational. Well, in the very front part of our brains is where reasonable and rational behavior is located. And you saw the brain earlier. Pretty early in the disease, reasonable and rational behavior starts to change. And it may be something that they could do yesterday and then today they can't because the connections just aren't there today. And then we're asking them to do something and they're reading us, they're reading our body language, our tone, and our frustration in furrowed brow, and then they react to us. Another reason you might get combativeness is just overstimulation, especially later in the day. There's too many people, there's too much noise, these lights are too bright, there's too much stuff going on. So as we get closer to the holidays, I really start to talk about overstimulation, because last year maybe a tree with lights was fine, but this year that tree with lights is not okay. Or last year maybe a lot of people in the room was okay, but this year it's not okay. And we have a whole program we do called Fewer Holiday Hassles. Be looking for that in November. Another reason someone may be combative is that the task is just too hard now. It's just too difficult and we're going to have to modify it. The last thing we want to do is just to start doing it for them. We want to modify it. We want to allow them dignity and we want to allow them independence for as long as possible. We're going to accommodate the disease. They can't. We're going to be the ones that figures out how to accommodate this and then show them. Physical problems, illness, or pain. So again, you can ask a person with dementia, this is really common, are you hurting? No. They may be sitting there like this. Do you have a headache? No. And we can tell they do. Something's going on. So we have to learn to read their physical body. And we're going to talk more about that. Because a person with dementia will get to the point that they never tell you that they have pain. But we know that if we go ahead and treat pain or give them a Tylenol, many times that takes care of the negative behavior that we were having because it was some type of pain. They might misinterpret what was said, where we said one thing, but they heard another. We may be treating them like a child. We may be trying to jump in and do too much for them. We may be using words in front of them. Adults don't wear diapers, but boy, have I heard that word said an awful lot. Right in front of, I've got to change mom's diaper. Adults don't wear diapers. Adults wear briefs. And adults don't wear bibs. Adults wear clothing protectors. That's just dignity. Being startled by sudden movement or a loud noise. If any of you have had the chance to do the Dementia Live experience, where you put the headphones on and the glasses and gloves, and we do our best to kind of give you dementia for a few minutes. One of the things that happens during that is very loud noises that make you startle, because their startle is much more than what ours would be. A conflict with someone or a desire to leave. So some of the signs to look for, and you know your loved ones best, some of the things to be looking for at where they might be starting to ramp up. Clenched fist, frowning, scowling, a deep frown, rapid eye movements back and forth, starting to mutter, yell, pacing. There's a difference in wandering and pacing. Wandering, that's fine and good. Wander around, look around, rummage around. But pacing can get very aggressive. banging on a table, pulling a door, grabbing, waving arms, or kicking legs. So some of the things we can do and we learn to do is to not wear any jewelry with sharp edges. If you've got a ring like that one I put on the picture there, that can cause a skin tear that you never meant to have happen. I've done it myself, where I just was trying to help somebody and my ring tore all the way up their arm. And so I caused the problem. Not wearing necklaces that hang, earrings that dangle, open-toed shoes, and making sure if somebody is starting to get physically, even verbally aggressive, that you put some space between you. Some other steps for intervention, one of the best things we can do is redirect, and I put this in red. People with dementia can only hold one thought at a time. So distracting them with another thought eliminates what was upsetting them in the beginning. So they're only capable of one thought at a time. If we can catch them quick enough, if we can start seeing the signs of they're kind of starting to ramp up and we get them distracted, and that usually also means changing environment. Now, that may mean just going from this room right here to that room over there. But I've got to get out of this room because in this room, I'm mad at you because you're trying to make me do something I don't want to do, or you just said something that made me mad. But over there in that other room, I may not be mad, especially if that other room has ice cream in it, or cookies, or the dog, or my favorite music. So the 4 things, and I'll go over this several times in here: food, the sweeter the better. We know their tastes are changing, and sweet tends to stay. With most people, sweet is wonderful. You will catch folks eating sugar packets because they can taste it. If you can't taste it, why would you want to eat it? Their music, their favorite music. We all have a music set, and it's usually the music from when we were about 10 to 25, that music we listened to as teenagers and young adults. Go back and find that music. That's where the iPhone is great because you can pull music up. Videos of animals, videos of children are great ways to distract as well. One way that you can look like you're not being aggressive is to keep your hands by your side and to only have one person talking at a time. So they have a difficult time processing information, and as the disease continues, it can take up to 20 seconds for what we say for them to be able to comprehend what that was. 20 seconds is a long time. If I were to stop for 20 seconds right now, many of you'd be going, did I disconnect? What's going on? Because it's a long time, but it's taking that long for them to hear and process what's going on. And we tend to talk really fast, and we want people to respond like that because they always have, but they're slowing down. Another thing you can do is ask them for their assistance, and you make it more about you. I'm needing help with, and it may be them getting dressed, but could you help me look at these pants? What is going on here? And I always try to make it funny to where we're laughing, and I've got my voice up and I'm smiling. So it must be nice. So I'm smiling and I'm making sure I don't have the furrowed brow. Other things, if somebody is overstimulated, just be really aware of background noise. If you're trying to do something with them in the TV, the radio, or somebody's mowing outside the window, that can be very distracting. We've already talked about moving to another location. If we're trying to get them something that is becoming very difficult, it's a difficult task, what's happening is they're feeling out of control. Now, all of us have been put in a situation where we felt like we weren't in control and we get frustrated, but our filters are still working. Their filters are not working. And so they may say or do things that they normally would never say or do. So what we have to do with most things is break it down into simple steps with very small sentences, even 2 to 3 word sentences. And it's more like a command, but it doesn't sound like a command if we say it with the right tone. And then allow them to completely finish that step before you start talking about the next step. So if we've got an inability to communicate where they are not understanding, we're getting frustrated, especially in the early to mid stages, this can be very embarrassing because they know it. they still realize that something's not right. And it's a whole lot easier to get mad at you than to say, I'm not understanding what you're saying. But anger is an easy emotion. Anger is the easiest emotion that we have. And you're the safe person. Primary caregivers are the safe person, and they're also the bad guy. You get to play both roles. You get to be the good guy and the bad guy. I need you, don't be out of my sight, but you're stupid, you're bad, you're dumb, you're blankety blank blank. Lots of other good words too. So look for meanings behind the words that they're saying and watch for nonverbal cues. Instead of listening to those words, listen to what they're trying to tell you. And then we have to change their routine accordingly. So when it gets to the point that they're needing more assistance while they get dressed in the morning, then we've got to start getting up 15 minutes earlier. We have to make the changes. Or when it gets to the point they can't cut up their meat anymore, we're not going to make a big deal out of that. We're going to cut it up in the kitchen and bring it out to them, and it's already cut up. And ours is too, so our plates look the same. Rather than bringing it out and standing over an adult and cutting their meat up for them, and then having a fight because I'm stupid and don't know what I'm doing anyway. So if somebody, again, going back to the pain, they're going to be unable to explain what's going on. When I worked at the Alzheimer's Association, I helped work the hotline there. And when people would call and say, for the first time, my loved one has hit, kicked, spit, pinched, pushed, we always recommended they go get a UA to see if they had a UTI, a urinary tract infection. The number one reason that a person will have an initial combative behavior is a UTI. UTIs become very, very common with dementia. They don't drink as much, they get dehydrated, their personal care might not be what it used to be, they may be wiping inappropriately, and we start to see more UTIs. And if you've ever had a UTI, you know it's a very uncomfortable, but it's a different kind of pain. And so they will act out, and you'll get somebody be combative who've never done it before. And they can run UAs at someplace like a Care Now when you go in, especially if you say, my loved one has dementia, I'm just needing to get a UA to see if they've got a UTI. Respiratory infections can also trigger combativeness, and then things like constipation, exhaustion, dehydration, all of those where they're unable to tell you. So these are some of the things we have to be thinking about. So if they're misinterpreting what's being said or done, they may think that they've already done what you're asking them to do. I already took a shower. You go take a shower. I just did that, or I'll do it later. I'm going to do it where they're kind of bargaining with you. So if we kind of start talking about it ahead of time, and again, we can make it about us. I'm needing help in here. I've had people, get in the shower with their loved ones because I'm needing help with it. Could you help me with this on my back? And then we're in there together, but we're getting the job done. And then making it about you, breaking it down into steps using 2 to 5 word sentences. Then we don't want to ever scold or criticize or get onto. One of the biggest things that we have to keep in our mind is they would if they could. They didn't do anything to make this happen. It just happened. They would do better if they could. So not talking down to them. And then this third bullet point is big. Not discussing their needs in front of them like they aren't there. They are there. We know that their amygdala stays intact. We've done some other programs where we've talked about what's going on in the brain, and the amygdala is where their feelings and emotions are located. And even if that hippocampus can't show any feeling on their face because it's going away, they're still there, and their feelings and emotions are still there. And the things we're saying, thinking they're not hearing, can affect the way they then behave later in the day. It's like we set the mood. So not announcing that they need care. We talked about that earlier, the diapers and the bibs. Interventions if somebody is startled, if they have that big jump and they get startled. If we had somebody come up from behind us and touch us, many of us they'd get an elbow. and our filters are working. So we don't want to come up from behind someone. If we're coming from the side, we want to be speaking to them, come from the front. And then be careful with things like vacuums and garbage disposals, because that can really set somebody off. Making eye contact before you touch, smiling, keeping your face smiling all the time as much as you can, and then avoiding sudden movements. We've mentioned they can read your facial expressions, your tone, and your body language. That's part of that amygdala that we know stays intact, being able to pick up on other people's emotions. So they can look at, and especially they've known you a long time, they may have given birth to you, or this may be your spouse, they can look in your face and they know how you're feeling. So us being very aware of our own body language. They don't have impulse control, but we do. They have poor judgment, but we don't. So trying not to invade their space without announcing ourselves first, saying, or even reaching out and touching their right leg when we're getting ready to put those pants on that right leg. And sometimes they just need another face or another voice, because they don't want to see us anymore. They need a change of face. And we may not have done anything, and they can't tell us why they need to see somebody else, but we just need to tap out and have another person come in the room, if that's possible. Now, if we have somebody who's wanting to leave, we can try to reason with them all day long. You might get lost, you might get in, but think about what we're trying to do. We're trying to reason, we're trying to be rational. They can't do that anymore. And most of the time, what's happening is they're operating on these past memories, and they're confusing it with the present. I need to leave work. I need to go to work. I need to pick up the kids. My parents will be looking for me. Or they may be trying to leave noise. And that, again, is where we have to go, did something change? Why are they trying to leave this room all of a sudden? Did a noise change? They may be needing to wander around, and that's okay. That's part of this disease. They need a safe place where they can walk and wander, and many times rummage around. And again, this is where we want to try to intervene early. Food, music, animals, and children. Go to another location. If you're inside, go outside. If you're outside, come inside. And don't try to convince them that they're wrong or reason with them. They would if they could. If somebody is having repeated words, yelling, screaming, crying, this is usually frustration. And again, many times it's during that ADL care, the activities of daily living. This is where, and this is an old teacher trick, any of you that are teachers, I was a teacher for 20 years. If you start talking with a much lower voice and your voice is going down, 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 many times they'll start to get quiet because they want to hear what you're saying. I used to do that with rooms full of high school students, where I'd just start bringing my voice down. And all of a sudden they go, what'd she say? Because they couldn't hear what I was saying. Or doing something like, shh, baby's sleeping, shh, the baby. Because when did we learn that trick? When we were little bitty. But that can just get them, take that breath so I can get that ice cream in their hand, or I can get this music turned on. Or even something like, did you hear that? Did you hear? Listen. And many times that will get them to kind of take that breath, listen, and then I can start my distraction with them. And there's some others on there that I'll let you read. It is okay, especially as this disease progresses. Think about what we needed when we were a little child, when we were upset. We needed to be rocked and held. And it is okay to rock and hold and sing. If somebody's being verbally aggressive, this is where we need to keep in mind that is the frontal part of their brain is damaged, and that controls their personality and their judgment. When they get frustrated, angry, or fearful, many times that's going to come out verbally aggressive and in inappropriate ways. We've got two language centers. The language center on the left is our regular language, and we know that that language center starts to go first. The language center on the right is our rhythmic language, and unfortunately, racial slurs, sex talk, swear words, those are in that right center, and they stay. So they'll use the words that are still there, even if they never used them before. Even if you didn't know that they knew those words, they'll come out in a rhythmic pattern sometimes where we go, boy, oh boy, that was quite a bunch of words we had there. But they're trying to tell you something. And it may be that they're trying to tell you, stop it. I don't want that. I don't know what you're doing. I'm not understanding. And one of the hardest things for us is to not take that personally when it's coming out of the mouth of our loved one. Trying not to react to the words, us keeping our tone and our smile and our voice where it needs to be. And then using this validation therapy, which I got my little picture over it. I know you feel scared right now, I do too. And matching their emotion. Instead of us kind of being up, if we see that they're continuing in this, we can match their emotion. I'm scared too. This is scaring me too. And finally, we're right at the end. This is some physical interventions to do only if you are being injured. These are some things that you can do. If someone is biting you, if you will pinch their nose, they will open their mouth. You think about that. So you just have to think about it in the moment. If somebody gets a hold of you and they're biting, pinch their nose, they'll open their mouth. Grabbing and hair pulling both, if you can get their thumb and just pull their thumb back, they'll open their hand. Don't break their thumb, just pull their thumb back and they'll open their hand. Because what we tend to want to do is pull back, and now we're both going to get hurt. They may fall. If they've got your hair, just pull the thumb back and they'll open their hand up. I did want to add this as the second to last slide. There are some behaviors that we do end up having to talk to the doctor about. And these are 10 behaviors that do respond to medication, and they respond well to medication. And depending on the comorbidities that your loved one might have, you know, what works for one person might not work for another, but it's worth talking to the doctor if it's something that continues, that behavior modifications don't seem to be helping too much with. And also keeping in mind it's temporary. Every one of these behaviors that they're going to have is temporary. They will turn the corner, and what had started will go away, and something new might come up, but all of it is temporary. But I did want to put those on there because each of those 10 responds well to medication. So the summary for combativeness, keeping in mind that all behavior does have a purpose and it does get triggered. Something triggers it normally. Whether it's physical or verbal, it's usually because they're afraid or they're frustrated. If we continue to reassure them so that they feel safe and allow them as much control as possible. And I put on here an example of pills. So I had a lady who wanted her pills all the time. You're keeping my pills from me. You're keeping my medicine. Her son came up with the best thing. He got the pill box and he put Tic Tacs in it. He put white Tic Tacs and green Tic Tacs and red Tic Tacs, and he gave her her pills. And the red ones are for your stomach and the green ones for your head. And then she was back in control of her medicine. She could eat all the pills she wanted, and it was Tic Tacs. Because he was trying to argue with her about, Mom, you don't need any. Very good. That's thinking outside the box. That's accommodating the disease. They need to feel valued. They need to feel like they have a purpose, and they need to have some choices that helps them with their independence. Sometimes it's easier for us to just get in there and do everything, but then that might be what's triggering. We can't change the person, but we can determine the unmet need and accommodate it. And we have to change how we respond to the behaviors. And my favorite line, they're not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. There's our information. Let me stop sharing and see if we had any questions come up. That was fast. That was a lot in 30 minutes. Did anybody have any questions or comments or anything that you've tried that's worked? Or thank you. Well, like I said,
will we be able to get a copy of these slides?
Yeah, Jamie will send them out this afternoon, and she'll also send this presentation, so you'll be able to
thank you so much.
See it again.
Excellent information. Just
Thank you.
so necessary right now. When you said, Holly, when you said that they're of the 10 symptoms,
Mhm.
and you said they're going to turn a corner.
Mhm.
Those are all temporary. They're going to turn a corner.
Yes.
What did you mean by turning a corner?
As the disease progresses, how they will, like when they go from mild to moderate, and so you'll see behaviors change. You'll see them stop doing one thing and maybe start doing another. And sometimes it is, and I'll just give an example. I used to have a gentleman who came to my office every single morning. You're the one that took my money. We did it every day. We had a whole thing that we played out where I had to call the bank and get it all figured out. And then one day he didn't do it. And then a few days later he did. And then he didn't do it again because he had turned the corner in the disease. He was on to something else. So with each of the behaviors, especially the combativeness, verbally and physically, as the disease progresses, they get to the point that they can't do it a lot of times.
I'm called mother a lot.
Yeah.
We did that, the pill thing, we did that with money.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, you know, he wanted $300, $500.
Mm-hmm.
And so we issued, you know, fives,
Mm-hmm.
you know, $20 in fives, and that looks like a lot of money, or 5 ones.
Yes.
You know, he carries around about $20 at all times.
Yep.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
that's
much
a great
for
thing.
today.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing that. With money, that's one of the things I always recommend is that, you know, go get a big old wad of 1s and 5s because it looks like a lot of money. I have had people get real creative with money. I had a gentleman start making some money that I swear he could have gotten in trouble, but he changed the face on it. It was real, and he put it on some kind of cardstock that looked real. He tried using fake money, that wasn't working, but he was able to get some money that really looked pretty real. But usually just the big old wad of some money will do it. And sometimes the other thing I found out with that is that people are wanting to tip. They've always tipped. And even when they move in someplace, they'll leave money on the table, or they'll leave money by the side of the bed, or they'll leave because they're tipping. So they had a reason.
Well, I have one little thing. We had a UTI issue earlier this summer, and I asked the doctor, because it's very difficult to take him into the restroom and leave a specimen.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked the doctor for supplies to bring home, and they did. They issued the collection cup and a bio bag. So
Mm-hmm.
now if the situation is questionable, again, we can collect it home and just drop it off.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. And usually, if you will let them know your situation, they work with you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Very good information today.
Thank you. And we'll get this set out. Thanks, everybody.